General quarters, all hands man your battle stations.
Broadcasting live on 1470 AM, 95.3 FM, iHeartRadio, and the World Wide Web. This is the Tom Trento Show. Make America think again.
All right, good morning, everyone out there. Tom Trento, your host. WNN 1470 on the AM side, and if you like to use the AM side of the dial, 95.3. Beautiful day in South Florida. I have a guest in the studio with me, Dr. Roni Wexler, today. We're going to deal with all things Israel. Right after I deal with a little bit of the nonsensical impeachment inquiry kangaroo court that's going on in Washington. But first, Dr. Roni Wexler, how you doing today?
Good morning, everybody. I feel great. What is not to feel great about in Florida? It's good.
It's good. You're in Florida, but we have people listening from all over the world. We know that, and rumor has that we even have some folks from Canada listening today. You spent some time in Canada. What were you doing in Canada, Ron?
Yeah, actually, I couldn't pay tuition in the United States, and I went to school in Canada. It's a beautiful country, beautiful country.
Yeah, with a great prime minister, too, right? So we'll save that for another show. We'll do that at another show. Oh, wait, Ronnie has another word.
Well, it is a beautiful country. It's nice to visit, but to live there, I have my doubts that I would ever go there again. It's too liberal. It's socialist. And if you get sick in Canada and you really want help, then you go back to the United States. And that's not a good idea.
Yeah, but our Canadian friends like Canada. So anyway, the Canadian show we'll do another time. Today we're going to deal with Israel. Once we get through some of this other ridiculous nonsense. Tom Trento, your host. I direct the United West. We're an educational organization, 501c3 organization. And our purpose is to provide information so that people can learn new facts, and then those new facts mobilize them to do something, and that mobilization results in activism. So they get involved. In particular, our campaign over the next year, we want to educate 1,000,001 evangelical Christians. These are individuals, my community, that have not been voting or getting involved in any sort of public arena. They're quiet. And in a republic, in a democracy, people need to speak up. And these folks, we're going to work to help them speak up, because whether or not Donald Trump is the president for the next 4 or 5 years, or whoever's elected, an evangelical Christian is the number one best friend of Israel. And you're going to see today that Israel is under attack within the country of Israel and within the country of the United States of America. And it's evangelical Christians who can help stand with Israel. And our mission over the next year is to bring 1,000,001 of them into the public square in the state of Florida, most critical state in the union. My organization, the United West, has 4 mission objectives. One, to defend the Constitution. The other, defend the state of Israel's right to exist. Third is to fight the Islamic jihad onslaught that's coming to the West, and the Marxist movement that's coming to the West. And sadly, we see these ideologies, Islamic jihad and Marxism, converging in America in the positions of many of the people running for president on the Democrat side. So we're here every day, 11 o'clock to noon, live to bring you great information. Have a little fun while we're doing it. Today, though, we want to focus on a couple of items on this impeachment thing. I have to watch CNN. And I tell the audience that when I do, I lock myself to the chair. I remove any knives from the room. I make sure the remote isn't. I don't want to hurt my TV, but I force myself to watch it because they're the opposition. They're the leading edge of the opposition. I was watching this morning, and I have a little piece of audio that I want to play for you, and it's their very elite somewhat obnoxious attorney laying out the case for impeachment. And you could be an average person. You don't have to be an attorney to realize the case is nonsense. It's a kangaroo court. It's fake. It's a fraud. But you know what? We're dealing with this in this world because the country's divided at this point. And basically, and I've done a lot of teaching on this, it's divided between people that have a belief in a real God, Jews and Christians, and people that have abandoned that. And when you take those positions, you have two different groups operating in America. Do we have that piece of audio? Listen to this, and then I'm going to dispatch the case against the president very, very quickly. Go ahead, Mark.
Now, this will come down, the whole Ukraine story has so many dimensions, but I think it comes down to three simple facts that we've learned during the last couple of weeks. Number one, Trump withheld foreign aid and dangled the White House visit. Number two, he requested that Ukraine investigate his political rivals. And number three, the foreign aid and the White House visit were connected to the political investigation.
These are the quid pro quos we've heard so much about.
That all boils down to a quid pro quo.
Oh, exactly. My God, you have got to be kidding me. The president is getting impeached because
you got to be kidding me.
He didn't let President Vladimir Zelensky, decided to run for president of the Ukraine in December of 2018. The election was in March of 2019. The guy had a 3-month campaign, but he was well known. He was a very popular figure. He was a writer, a movie maker, and he was a comedian. And he had a show where he played the president of the Ukraine. So everyone in the Ukraine knew him. He got over 13 million votes against 4 million votes with his opponent. Everyone in the Ukraine knew him as the guy who played the president. He decided to run for the presidency, and he ran and he won. He won in March, and then they had a runoff in April, and he became the president of the Ukraine.
It'd be like Jon Stewart winning the presidency.
Yeah, exactly, something like that. So now, as of this morning on CNN, the president is going to get impeached because he dangled a visit to the White, that's the term that was used, dangled a visit to the White House over President Zelensky based upon whether or not he would do what Donald Trump wanted him to do. Well, you need to listen to yesterday's show. I laid it out in great detail that what Donald Trump was asking for, this quid pro quo. And Trump can't run away from a quid pro quo because a quid pro quo is a this for that. It's very, very simple. We do it all day long. Understand in 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, the Ukraine was a corrupt place. And in 2016, documented facts that the leaders in Ukraine interfered in the election. They didn't want Donald Trump to win because he appeared to be pro-Putin. So they helped Hillary Clinton. They got involved in trying to find dirt against Trump for Hillary Clinton to help her campaign. That's a fact. CNN doesn't want you to know that. Donald Trump in 2019, when he was talking to Zelensky, saying, look, you seem like a nice guy. I don't know you from nobody, but you seem like a nice guy. I want you to clean up your country. And I also want you to find out what happened in 2016. Look, I'm the president. It's not going to hurt me. But I want to find out who in there was trying to mess with our election. And we got a guy who used to be the vice president. He's running for president, Joe Biden. I want to find out because there's all kinds of evidence and innuendo and everything else. I want you to investigate it and clear the guy or let us know if he was dirty and his son was dirty with Burisma. Our country deserves to know that. It was a public phone call, not a public phone call. It was a phone call that Trump had with Zelensky with 25 people on it. If he wanted to bribe, you don't bribe anybody with 25 people watching you bribe them. Nonsensical. We will stay on this. This is newsworthy, but I want to assure all the conservatives, all the middle of the road people that can't take this Democrat nonsense anymore. Donald Trump is not going anywhere. He was on Fox for an hour today, cracking me up with his views on life. He's doing great. His health is great. And he is the answer to the problems in the United States of America, if you believe in the Constitution, and the answer to the problems in the Middle East, if you believe the Israelis in the state of Israel. I have an Israeli with me right now, Roni Wexler. Roni Wexler is a brother of mine, a dear friend of ours. He owns the travel company, Heritage Study Programs. Not Heritage Hang Out on the Beach in Tel Aviv programs, though we do that at times, but Heritage Study Programs. Ron, give us a quick overview of your vision for Heritage Study Programs when you started it 35 years ago.
Well, the idea was exactly what you said. This is not a vacation when you go to Israel with Heritage Study Programs. We provide a program, a study program. We began with a better understanding of the scriptures. In fact, we went as far as creating a program that gave credits, university credits, to those who came to Israel. We had about 10 or 12 universities and colleges in the United States that participated with us, and once you completed the program, meaning you did some homework before going to Israel, and then in Israel, and when you came back, you submitted your material, and you came out with 3 or 4 credits, depends on the university or college that you chose to work with. Later on, we started to go to Israel to better understand the Middle East, security and defense, understand that Israel is the buffer zone between radical countries and the West. And we started, Tom, yourself and I, to take people to Israel maybe 10 years ago. And by now we had hundreds of people that came back to the United States, not only better educated, but equipped with tools and information to help people in the United States understand better what at hand in Israel. And Israel is attached to the United States on almost every level. And most people in America just don't know that. And we try, when we go to Israel, to educate and come back with all this information so they can share with those who don't come with us.
And those folks who share usually are in some sort of leadership position. We took Janine Pirro a couple of years ago, and usually the people that come are policy people or educators, Christians and Jews. And the show today is very amazing because we're going to show you a dichotomy of perspectives, 2 opposite perspectives going on in the world regarding this guy who may be impeached by the Democrats. It's 15 minutes after 11 a.m. on the East Coast. Tom Trento here, your host with Dr. Roni Wexler. And we're going to take a look at Donald Trump today. And he's in the news. He's in the news every day. But we're going to look at what Israelis think of Donald Trump and what American Jewish organizations, in particular, the Jewish Democrat Council of America, headed up by a former congressman from South Florida, Ron Klein. Listen to this. I want everybody to listen to this very, very carefully. And the United West is going back to Israel in May 18 through 29, on Dr. Roni Wexler's Heritage Study Program mission. We're taking a group called Jexit, Jews Exiting from the Democrat Party. Some very fascinating friends of ours have started this about a year ago, and they're simply telling Jewish Democrats, look, it's the party of your father and your grandfather and Kennedy and all of that, but the party has changed. It's no longer the party that represents your views. That's the Jexit message. We're taking them to Israel to listen to what Israelis say about Donald Trump and come back with that information. But this organization here, Jewish Democrat Council for America, they have come out, I'm not kidding, ladies and gentlemen, they have come out this week saying the most dangerous person in the world for Jewish Americans is Donald Trump.
What?
The most dangerous person in the world for Jewish Americans is Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
I'm going to make that argument for them. They won't come on the show. They would never stand across from me. But we'll try to get them. We're going to make that argument. But we need to put this into perspective. A couple of weeks ago, the IDF decided to take out a leader of PIJ, Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And they killed him in a very pinpoint attack. And his people went nuts. And the PIJ is a small group in Gaza, with a larger terrorist group being the Hamas. So the PIJ launched how many missiles 2 weeks ago, Ron?
About 400 missiles, very crude missiles that could not be actually aimed at any specific target, so they just fall wherever they fall. Most casualties usually are civilians, innocent civilians. Thank God there were nobody hurt in Israel seriously. There were a lot of situations where people ran away from danger and maybe fell or just got scratched a little bit. But this is a miracle by itself. 400 missiles were aimed at innocent civilians at Israel, and this is what we're dealing with.
All right, so that happened a couple of weeks ago, and the IDF also went into Damascus and dropped the bomb on another PIJ, Palestinian Islamic Jihad leaders. He escaped. His son got killed. But this upset, obviously, the terrorists in both the Middle East and in the United States. And just as recently as a couple of days ago, the IDF launched an attack hitting dozens of targets right around the Damascus airport, which is 50 miles from Mount Hermon, from the Golan, about 50 miles. So the IDF right now is in a very preemptive mode. When their intelligence services say there's some bad guys here, Netanyahu, who, by the way, is in a mess right now, Ron. We'll deal with Netanyahu next week, but can you briefly sum up the Netanyahu indictment, presidency, all of that in 30 seconds? No,
I can do it in two.
Yeah, what?
Donald Trump.
Yeah, it's the same sort of thing going after Donald Trump. Next week we're going to detail very clearly what's going on in Israel with the election and these supposed indictments against Benjamin Netanyahu. More craziness. There is a small leftist faction in Israel, but we'll bring you that next week. But right now the IDF is in a preventative mode. So, as the United West has shown many, many times, and you're talking here with or listening to Tom Trento, Dr. Roni Wexler, 11:20 in the afternoon, and J. Mark Campbell. Mark, you're back there. How's life in the control room? We got to get you some help, bro.
I feel like an octopus, man.
Yeah, we got to get you some help. We have to give Mark some help. It's a 3-man operation in the control room, and we got Mark running around like crazy. But whenever the IDF exerts his right to defend itself, normally there's a response worldwide and always in the United States, because the jihadis that have migrated from Muslim countries to the U.S., they know they got tremendous freedom and they can say anything they want to. If the jihadis we're going to let you listen to right now were to say stuff like this in their own Muslim countries against their leadership, they would be executed on the spot. There is no First Amendment freedom. But you can say this stuff that you're going to hear, and what you're going to hear sounds like it's coming from Gaza or from Beirut or from Damascus or from Amman or some place that hates Americans, hates Trump, hates Jews primarily. But this is not in the Middle East. This is in the middle of Manhattan. And if you've ever been in Manhattan in the middle, it's called Times Square. Mark, could you play the peace rally, just about a minute or two or so, of the peace rally that occurred last week?
You mean the Palestinian peace rally?
The Palestinian
peace
about
rally.
3 or 4 Palestinian organizations got together to hold a peace rally in support of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad and the Hamas. Listen carefully to these words.
1, 2, 3, 4. Occupation no more. Occupation no more. 5, 6, 7, 8. 5, 6, 7, 8. Master settler, Zionist state. Master settler, Zionist state. Settler, go back home.
Settler, go back home.
Palestine is ours alone.
Palestine is ours alone.
We don't want two states. We want 48.
Well,
1948.
1948. They won 1948. The river
From the Jordan to the
sea
Mediterranean.
will be free of Jews.
Intifada.
Intifada.
This is in Times Square,
This is the
ladies
peace
and
rally.
gentlemen.
Peace rally.
You know, people ask, does Israel have a right to exist? No! Israel has no right to
How
Pretty
clear
simple.
can you get, Ron?
Palestinian land.
Well, this is what we hear in the West Bank, Samaria and
Does
Judea.
Hold on a
Israel
second.
have a right to exist?
No.
Does
This is
Israel have
nothing
a
new
right
for
to
us
exist?
Israelis, and we fought it, and we're
Does
still fighting
Palestine
it.
have a right
Now
to
it's in
resist
Manhattan.
it? Does Palestine have a right to resist it?
Now,
We've never seen that before.
oh,
Tom.
we've never seen that before. United West is about 13 years old. 13 years we've been doing this, and we've cut our teeth on going to the bad guys, going to their mosques, their organizations, their meetings, confronting them with the truth and with cameras to expose them, and whether it's undercover or overtly, and to bring this message out to teach Jews and Christians, hey, we got a problem here, and we need to organize, and we need to make sure they don't destroy this great country, and we minimize whatever the destruction they can do in Israel.
And Tom, right down in Miami, just very similar. We recorded, we are jihad, we are Hamas, from the river to the sea, free of Jews, and also calling for the total extermination of Jewish people in downtown Miami. Tell them about it, Tom.
Well, they're listening to me, Mark, Tom Trento at 1124, and on December 30th, 2008, that's a while back, I stood on the corner of Broward Boulevard and 3rd Street and videotaped, it was then Operation Cast Lead. It was the peace rally against that operation where the Israelis were fighting Hamas in Gaza, and I held my camera and recorded a bunch of Islamic terrorists yelling, Jews go back in the oven and nuke Israel. I put that up on the internet, and the next day, well, by now it's seen, probably 50 million times all over the world. That one video, which launched our work tremendously. But this is nothing new, as Ronnie just said, who grew up there, fought in the IDF, fought in the 6-Day War, the 73 War. This is the peace partner, Ron. How do you make peace with these
Well,
people?
you don't make peace, and I have shocking news to everybody who's listening. I'm a Palestinian. I was born in Israel in 1947, so on the passport or on the birth certificate, it says Palestine. My father's passport says Palestine on it, so what does it make me? A non-Israeli? I'm an Israeli. Israel is Palestine. And these people have no right to tell me where to live. I was born there.
And just recently, and we'll get into this in a little bit, the Secretary of State, operating under the president, said, you know what, that Judea and Samaria thing, I think that belongs to Israel. I think it belongs to Israel, and screw international law that's cooking the books. But here's the point. Here's the big idea for today. We want all our listeners to get this point, that when you have a major portion of America, indeed a significant Jewish portion of America, identifying Donald Trump as the most dangerous individual for American Jews, you don't think that opens the door for these jihadis in Manhattan to go do and say crazy stuff? You don't think that opens the door for the true believing jihadis who, if they kill Jews, they go to paradise, to take the words a bit further when an organization like the Jewish Democrat Council for America identifies Trump as enemy number one? We're alerting people to this organization now, headed up by Ron Klein. Mark, you got that 1 minute? They put out a 1-minute video. The name of the organization is Jewish Democrat Council for America. They put out a 1-minute video saying that Donald Trump is essentially a Nazi. He supports Nazis and white racists, and therefore he's the biggest problem for Jews in America. Let's play that piece.
Jews will not replace us! Jews will not replace us!
After white nationalists marched in Charlottesville, Donald Trump said,
"Very fine people on both sides."
Trump further emboldened the far right, speaking of immigrant invaders and infestation, words echoed by a white nationalist before carrying out the worst anti-Semitic attack in American history.
There has been a shooting at a synagogue in Pittsburgh.
At least 11 people are dead and 6 more wounded after a man...
Now Trump is aiming his dangerous rhetoric directly at Jews.
And I think any Jewish people that vote for a Democrat, I think it shows either a total lack of knowledge or great disloyalty.
No wonder violent anti-Semitism is skyrocketing in America. The biggest threat to the security of American Jews today is, incredibly, the President of the United States.
Unfriggin' believable. The biggest threat to American Jews. See, this is...
Where you go with this,
the Soviet Union are masters at propaganda, and they collapsed. Russia's pretty good at propaganda. Nobody can do propaganda as good as the Democrat Party. Unbelievable. They take a false proposition, a false fact that Trump said, oh, there's good people on both sides, and then they build a straw man, a fake argument on it, and then they have a conclusion. Trump, therefore, is the most dangerous person for American Jews.
And he wasn't even talking. I want to make this perfectly clear. He wasn't even talking about the Nazis. He was talking about the people who were there.
I'm going to lay that point out. I mean, that's the whole thing we're doing here. And then we're going to jump to Israel to show you what the Israelis think. So if you want a Jewish perspective for my Democrat friends, my Jewish friends listening, driving, listening on the radio at home, wherever, iHeartRadio, if you want a perspective on Donald Trump as he relates to Jewish people, you have to make a distinction between an American Jew who sold out to the Democrat Party or an Israeli and whatever Jewishness they have. Those are the two groups, 7 million in the U.S., 7 million in Israel. Regarding the Charlottesville debacle of August of 2017, earlier in the year, January, February, March, the Charlottesville City Council voted to take down a statue of Robert E. Lee. And they voted to take the statue down because there was a lot of pressure from the hardcore left, from Black Lives Matter, that, the Civil War was racist and all this stuff, and the South were slave owners, and therefore eradicate history. Change the history books, change the any sort of statues or monuments that are out there, get rid of them. They hurt people when they look at them. That was the argument. Well, the city council voted, okay, we'll take Robert E. Lee down. Problem they ran into is in the late 1890s, a philanthropist by the name of McCarthy, he donated money to Charlottesville, to Virginia, to build works of art, statues, historic monuments, all of this. And part of the funding of that had a contingency that these things can't be taken down without proper discourse and all of this. So the citizens, many citizens of Charlottesville and of Virginia lined up on the don't take monuments down. Any monument, anywhere. Leave them up. That's part of our history, right, wrong, or indifferent. And the other side of the argument was take this monument down. Well, there was a group that was going to hold a rally, and the group was a racist group exploiting this legitimate discussion, and the racist group was going to say, we hate black people, and these were the true Nazis and white racists. And they went in there and broke up this whole thing and got in fights, and one guy eventually ran his car over and killed somebody. Horrible. If you look at the record, President Trump was tweeting during the event early on, hey, everybody's got to be calm. We're all Americans here. But you won't see that reported in CNN or anywhere else. And when he made the comments, there's good people on both sides, he wasn't talking about the middle group that were the Nazis causing problems. He was talking about the citizens of Virginia who were opposed to taking down monuments without some sort of historic evaluation and legal analysis, just by the vote of a city council. So he's saying there's good people there and there's good people on the side of taking it down. Let's take a look at this. But as a result, because of the hatred, this is 2017 now, Trump is the disruptor. As a result of his disruption, the press took this and made him a white racist, which still sticks today. People believe that. And now, here's the sad part. Ron Klein, former congressman, loved by Jewish people in South Florida, he starts this organization, he heads it up, which now declares last week, Donald Trump is the most dangerous person to American Jews. Can you believe this? Do we have Damon on the line by any chance? Not yet. Okay. We're waiting for our field representative in Jerusalem to give us a call to get a little insight into things. But that's the situation that occurred in Charlottesville. Ron, your thoughts on how a Jewish person in America can look at Donald Trump and say he's our biggest threat?
Well, this is so ridiculous. It's almost impossible to pass judgment. It just doesn't make any sense. And I want to say also that Donald Trump is the most loved United States president in Israel. In Israel, Donald Trump is king. When he decided to stand and help Israel, first of all, send one of the best ambassadors Israel ever had. He's watching the back of Israel. When he said that he is going to move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, he did so. When he said that he will recognize the West Bank and Samaria and Judea, making it de facto part of Israel, he delivered. When everybody is going against him in Washington in a witch hunt that is impossible to even think that anybody can think straight. The President of the United States is thinking about Israel. He is the best president, and I think by the end of this witch hunt, he's going to come far stronger than he ever been, and he's going to be the next president of the United States of America. I have no doubt.
In 2018, Roni Wexler and I, along with Janine Pirro, were honored guests of the White House through Ambassador David Friedman. And on our trip this coming May 2020, we're working on Ambassador Friedman briefing our group. But in 2018, we were invited to be on that mountain. And I can only imagine, Ron, I can imagine you were with me. We were sitting together, how you felt with being there, watching the ceremony where the embassy changed from Tel Aviv, from Bill Clinton in 1995, through the Bushes, through Obama, everybody scared out of their mind, fearing a Muslim invasion. Trump said, I campaigned on it, I'm doing it. The politically expedient thing would have been not to do it. He did it. And we were there as part of history. And I treasure the little hat we got, the cap, and that little coin. You know, isn't it amazing? Yeah, amazing day. So I think we have Damon Rosen, our field representative in Jerusalem, on the line. Damon, are you there?
I am here.
All right. How are you? Our show today, Mark, I'm getting reverb on me. Is that okay? Okay, it's not there. Just as long as the folks don't hear that. Good. I can deal with anything. Damon, we're showing the contrast between former Congressman Ron Klein heading up this organization, Jewish Democrat Council in America, where they put out this phenomenal propaganda making Donald Trump a Nazi, and conclude with the fact that Donald Trump is the greatest enemy of American Jews, versus the reality on the ground in Israel. You worked with us at the United West for many years. You made Aliyah. You live in the Jerusalem area. You're a field representative. You're running around. You're involved in everything. Give us a little feel for the Israeli view of Donald Trump.
Well, I'll give you a couple levels. First of all, let's diametrically oppose idiot Ron Klein with just yesterday, 250 Israeli rabbis, including the chief rabbis of Israel, signed a letter thanking Donald Trump for all he has done for the state of Israel and saying that he will always be remembered on the lips of Israelis. That's the religious component. Okay, so I would venture to say that 250 of the most important rabbis in Israel would have a pretty good idea if Donald Trump was anti-Semitic. Secondly,
wait. I want that point to get. I want our listeners. They're driving their cars, they're eating lunch, and all that. I want them to stop. You gotta listen to this. This is gigantic news. If you have any concern for the nation of Israel, and you should, on many levels, but it's our number one national security partner. And that's true to a large extent because of the great relationship between Prime Minister Netanyahu and Trump. But the Orthodox community, the rabbinic community, is not like a religious community here. This is a significant portion of the life and fabric and blood of everyday Israelis and Israel. Just state again what these 250 rabbis concluded about Trump.
But they signed a letter, and I'll read you from the article from Aretz Sheva, Israel National News. 250 rabbis signed a letter sent to U.S. President Donald Trump congratulating him on the historic series of decisions he has made during his tenure in the White House. The letter was sent following statements by Secretary of State Pompeo earlier this week that the U.S. does not consider the Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria to be in conflict with international law.
That was a big decision about blowing off international law, right? Okay.
That comes on the heels of some of the things Ronnie mentioned, recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, then moving the embassy, recognizing Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights, shutting the PLO office in Washington, D.C., cutting away funding from UNRWA, which only perpetuates the Palestinian refugee problem. He's by far the most pro-Israeli president in the history of America. So
if you were to go right now in Tel Aviv and pick 5 Israelis and say, thumbs up or thumbs down, do you like President Trump? What would they say?
In Tel Aviv, it's funny. In Tel Aviv, it would probably be 3 out of 5 would give him a thumbs up because Tel Aviv is liberal and they suffer from Bibi derangement syndrome and to a lesser extent Trump derangement syndrome, but still over 50%, 60% would still probably give him a thumbs up. If you ask that in Jerusalem, it would probably be in the 80 to 90% range.
And what about the rest of the country?
Probably in the 75% range.
Okay, so an average
in
of
general.
what? 90%, something like that?
Exactly flipped of how U.S. Jews are polling.
Unbelievable. I looked at that letter you're referring to, and there's a very interesting part in the letter. And at 11:40, Tom Trento, your host here on the Trento Show, in studio with me is Dr. Roni Wexler. And on the line from Jerusalem is Damon Rosen, who worked with the United West for many years. We took him in 2015 on one of Roni Wexler's trips. Damon, Jewish guy who had never been to Israel, on the way back said, Trento, I'm moving. This is in my blood. And a year and a half later, Damon made Aliyah. And now he's doing phenomenal work for us. And in Israel, we got to keep him doing that, ladies and gentlemen. We need your help, obviously, doing all of that. But he's on the front lines and brings back great information. Damon, in this letter that the rabbis wrote, it's interesting that they view Donald Trump as having some sort of relationship to the prophet Jeremiah. And they reference in the letter about Jeremiah writing 2,500 years ago that the people of Israel will return to the mountains. This is specific language of Samaria and will plant in them vineyards. Now, Roni Wexler, who's an Israeli. How's your Hebrew doing, Damon?
Please. My dog is slightly better.
Next question. Ronnie hasn't forgotten his Hebrew. I asked him to read the specific verse in Hebrew, and we'll explain it in English.
This is a prophetic, prophecy, obviously, of Jeremiah chapter 31 of the rebuilding of Israel, specifically Judea and Samaria. And in the Hebrew, עוד אבנך ונבנית בתולת ישראל, עוד תעדית ופייך ויצאת במחול משחקים.
Yeah, what that says is, yet again I will rebuild you, then you will be rebuilt. It goes on to say that you shall again plant vineyards in the mountains of Samaria. Indeed, planters shall plant them again and redeem them again. So from the rabbi's point of view, what Donald Trump has done by not recognizing international law, which prohibited Jews from owning Judea and Samaria. And Damon, you make the great point. Make your point again about Judea and Jews.
How is it possibly illegal for Jews to live in a place called Judea? We're called Jews because that's where we're from.
Yeah, so Donald Trump, through the State Department, said, I'm not going to recognize that international law that we had for 40 years, that Carter started, not the great friend of Jews for sure, that Reagan didn't agree with, that everyone else after him followed. I'm getting rid of that. If Jews want to settle in Judea and Samaria, they can, according to international law. Now it's up to you Jews to work it out with the Palestinians, but he removed the obstacle of the United States having to follow international law. And the rabbis, Ron, see this prophetically. What do you think?
They sure do. And this is a surprise to me because usually rabbis don't go on prophetic ideas in the way that this letter now comes to be. Usually it's the evangelical groups that come to Israel coming with ideas that biblical prophecies are coming to fruition. And now to see that the Jews are sharing in it, it's amazing. Actually, I get shivers when I see what's going on here. And truly, I must say that this is a fruition to a prophecy. Because if you read the Bible, you can read it only one way. And that's what it means, that Israel will come back to its original land, Israel meaning the Jewish people, and they will flourish there. And today, Israel is a massive country that should be recognized as such.
I love that whole thing. Americans are from America. French people are from France. Arabs are from Arabia, and Jews are from where? Judea.
Yeah. No, very, very interesting. But here's the point, ladies and gentlemen. Tom Trento, your host. 11:45 in the morning. I keep saying the afternoon, but it's not. It's the morning. On the East Coast, you're on WNN. It's actually technically WWNN, but we have been on this radio station on and off as the budget allows for the past 4 or 5 years. And we shorten it. We say WNN. It's easier. It flows out of your mouth more easily. WNN 1470. We want you to tune to the station. Our good friends, Brian Craig and Steve Kane, they start the morning, and you ought to start the morning with Brian and Steve. Steve is one of the longest running talk show hosts in the state of Florida from 1977. Steve used to be, I was listening back in the early 80s. Steve was a nutcase leftist. Crazy guy. I mean, crazy show.
He's a Jexeter.
And then his life changed. He had a religious experience, and he became a conservative, and Brian was just assisting Steve, and Brian now is the co-host with him, does a phenomenal job. So we want everybody to start your day at 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock, wherever you are. You're driving, you're working, whatever. Put them on in the background, and you'll be laughing and learning. Laughing and learning. That's what we do here. Edutainment. We educate and we entertain a bit. So it's 11:46. Our goal today is to show you the dichotomy of thought within the Jewish community in the United States versus Jews in Israel. And we laid out in the beginning this horrendous peace rally by Muslim jihadists in Times Square. And we put it in the context of a legitimate Jewish organization identifying Donald Trump as the greatest threat to American Jews. I'm going to ask Damon and Mark and Ronnie to have a little conversation on this. Did we get Jane yet? I think Jane's coming in at 11:45. And we do have Jane? Okay. Not yet, in a second. And then we looked at this letter written by rabbis, not only supporting and affirming Donald Trump as the greatest friend to Israel, but they get into Bible prophecy that Ronnie just read and explained in the Hebrew. And I agree with Ronnie. It's usually the evangelical Christians, the group we're trying to bring into the public marketplace to stand with Israel. We have a whole campaign to educate them and bring them in. And this is the group that's usually saying, hey, you Jews, you're part of prophecy. God has a plan for you. The rabbis see that. So this convergence of Bible-believing Christians and Bible-believing Jews is phenomenal. It's bizarre, but it's exciting, and we're in these days living it. Jane Keel, Jerusalem. Jane, are you there, dear?
Good evening from Jerusalem. Yes, I'm here.
This is our dear friend, Jerusalem Jane. We met her several years ago. We were in Israel. We heard about a young woman who left Denmark, heard the call of God, and left with no money, no nothing, just went on faith and said, God wants me in Israel. I don't know where. I don't know exactly why, but I know I need to go. Sounds like a Old Testament Hebrew prophet going to the promised land. And she went, and a movie should be made about her life. She's probably gotten more death threats from Muslim jihadis than anybody in the world that I know. Thousands upon thousands upon thousands.
A blonde Norwegian woman.
A blonde Norwegian woman. And all she does is go out and make videos standing with Jews and with Israel. She doesn't try to convert Jews to Christianity. It's not her goal or mission or desire. It's to stand with Jewish people worldwide, primarily Israelis in Israel. What's going on, Janie?
You're making me blush. Thank you for your kind words. Oh, what's going on? I'm sitting here with my candles, and I just finished I ate early because you were going to call me. So it's a beautiful Shabbat evening. You know, it's almost 7 o'clock at night. It's turbulent time in Israel now regarding politics, regarding elections, regarding the prime minister. I'm praying a little bit and saying, God, what in the green world is going on in your country right now? But for such a time as this, as we as Christians, it has never been more important that we come together and we pray for the guy who is in charge right now, Benjamin Netanyahu, and show Israel that you are not alone.
Hi, Janie. We've spent the show showing the dichotomy. You have the word dichotomy in the Danish language?
I'm not even sure I know what that means.
We love Janie.
You got me.
She's an amazing woman. I mean, when you're with her in Jerusalem, walking down Ben Yehuda, you can't walk 10 feet without Jerusalem Jane. Oh, can we have a picture? Oh, Jerusalem Jane, Jerusalem Jane. She's a star in Israel, and that's not even why she went. What's your mission? How do you explain your mission in 30 seconds?
The most important thing I can do is to comfort my people and to love the Jewish people, because Europe and the European Union and the United Nations is morally bankrupt. They have turned what's right wrong and what's wrong is right, and the lies and the propaganda that's coming from them towards the Jewish people is so bad, that's why they love your president, and that's why they look to us as Christians saying, is anybody with us? Is anybody standing with us? So I'm trying to just do my little part, being my little voice in saying, I love you, I stand with you, you're right, this is your God-given nation, no fake Palestinian state, no lies, no indictment coming against you will ever change that. We believe in God, we believe in the Bible, we believe in truth, facts, and history. If we don't have that, we don't have anything. And literally, they're Yet their jaw is dropping because they're not used to people saying that, because they hear all the lies. So I'm telling the Christians, you need to wake up, stand with Israel, and show them love. And what does God command us to do? He's not saying go convert the Jews and, all of that's what they have been met for so many years. But he is saying comfort my people. I will bless those that bless Israel, and I will curse those that curse Israel. So that's what I try to do. Amen.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been talking about the dichotomy, the two different opinions, the worlds apart, two different opinions.
North-south.
North and south between Democrat Jewish organizations in the United States, how they view Trump. They just have declared this past week one significant Jewish organization headed up by a former congressman from Florida, that Donald Trump is the greatest enemy of American Jews. And we have Damon on the line, too, and he was giving us insight into the Israeli view of Donald Trump. You give us your view of the Israeli view of Donald Trump, and then I'm going to open it up for Damon or Ronnie or Mark to ask any questions.
I don't know, because I didn't hear your program, but I don't know if you were speaking about that more than 200 rabbis, including the chief rabbi of Israel, sent a letter to Trump thanking him for his recognition of Israel's right to Judea and Samaria, and comparing this political move to prophecy of Jeremiah. So that's what you have here. You have 200 rabbis who are saying more than 2,000 years ago, the prophet Jeremiah claimed that the nation of Israel would return to the hills of Samaria and plant their vineyards. So they are thanking Trump. Listen, you just need to open your eyes. Europe and the whole world, that's what I said before, the lies that Israel is occupying their own nation. You cannot occupy what you legally own. And for the first time, there's a president that is using his eyes and just getting on the right side of history. Of course, we applaud him. This is common sense. He's just proclaiming what is common sense and what the rest of the world really needs to do. Of course, the Jewish people love him. There's never been anyone like him who's coming out saying, excuse me, Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. It has never been the capital of any other nation, nor no fake nation called Palestine. The Golan Heights, it's part of Israel. Israel doesn't occupy anything. Israel, the Jewish people, liberated their God-given nation. You cannot occupy what you own. So, of course, the Jewish people love him.
All right.
I'd like to add a legal aspect
it's
to that.
11:54. Tom Trento, your host, and I direct an organization called The United West. With me is Jerusalem Jane in Jerusalem, and also Damon Rosen right outside of Jerusalem, and J. Mark Campbell in the control room, and Dr. Roni Wexler sitting here.
Yeah, I would like to address
all of us. Hang on. All of us go on our annual national security mission, educational mission to Israel, and with about 50 other people, sometimes 100, depending. And the four of us, 1, 2, 3, 4 of us, 5 of us on the show right now, we're all together on that trip, right, Ron?
Correct.
Tell us about that trip.
This trip is second to none. Many people go to Israel and come back very satisfied because they don't know what to look in Israel, and they come back as a visit that just ended to a vacation place. But with us, with Tom and myself and the others, and you in Israel, we come together and we understand things that need to be understood, and otherwise we just don't know what they mean. So Americans listening to radio, watching television, see all kinds of things happening in Israel, but they don't connect the dots. When we go to Israel, we get to understand what those things are. And what you heard today on the show from Jerusalem and from here in the studio is the connection that we have in Israel. America and Israel are connected in every level possible. And to disconnect those levels means that this is not a good ending to Israel, and this is not a good thing for America. So when we go to Israel, we learn, we study, we come back. The organization is Heritage Study Programs. We study. We don't go there on vacation. And we invite you. We invite you to come because you're going to come back equipped with information that otherwise you would never get.
One correction, Ron. Some of us go a couple of days early and stay a couple of days longer for a little vacation. Okay, because you run us hard on that educational stuff. Mark, got about a minute left. You got a question for Janie?
Well, I was wanting to bring up the point. You got to watch out for the lies. The lies are just coming rampant left and right. Give you a quick example. Is last night a liberal friend of mine came and says, "You realize Trump just came out and said that all Democrats are scum?" We went back and forth. I go, well, that'd be bad. I go, wow. So I go look it up and I go, oh, he's calling Adam Schiff and the Democrats on the panel scum. And I go, read the article, read the quote before you come out here and start yelling at me about Donald Trump. And that's what happens. Everything's taken out of context. Everything's taken, just like the racist thing down in that they're saying Trump's a racist.
Well, they have to do that. And that's what our show is all about. They have to do that because they don't have a substantive argument. So they got to use emotion and rhetoric and hyperbole
and twist what's said.
Hey, Damon,
it's not there.
Damon, you still there?
I'm here.
You stay safe. We will get back to you next week. Next week, we're going to do a show on the election situation with the prime minister and everything going on in the Knesset. We're gonna make it simple for people to understand. So you bone up on all that craziness, okay?
Everyone could look it up. Balagan.
All right, I know, Balagan, craziness. Janie, thank you very, very much. I got to sign off for us here in a minute. Ronnie, any last word? You got about 30 seconds.
My last word is saying to everybody, Shabbat Shalom. Have a peaceful Shabbat. Enjoy your day off. This is another dibra, another commandment to have a good Shabbat. So for all of you, Shabbat Shalom, and talk to you again real soon.
Okay, well, I can't add anything else to that. That's a great way in which to close. Just tell the folks you're listening to Tom Trento, the Trento Show. We're here every day from now until the end of next year. Lord willing, the donations come in and the creek don't rise. But have an absolutely wonderful Shabbat. And, for my Christian friends, it makes sense to slow down every once in a while and spend time with your family. Very, 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 very important. Take care, everyone. God bless and have a wonderful weekend. Tom Trento signing off for the team.